I need to apologise to you all because I forgot to mention something in yesterday's video. In Gavin Verhey's explainer article for the game changers and the brackets of Commander, the word unban and unbanned were mentioned. 8 different cases the word unban or unbans. And with that word, especially connected to the most popular format in the game, suddenly people saw dollar signs in their eyes. Let's talk about the big stonks, baby. Dockside extortions went from a mid-price of $19 to $60 overnight. TLDR on the happenings that happened on the 11th, or was it the 12th? I don't know. Time is a construct. Gavin leading up the Commander Advisory Committee, I don't even know what the fuck it's called anymore, but heading up that, they've come up with a system where there's going to be brackets and game changers. Brackets telling you what format or part of the format you want to get paired into in a matchmaking system for conventions and similar in game stores, and the game changers are a list of cards that are considered cards that are very, very good and thus change the game. And the number of ones you play in your deck should tell you what bracket you're in, except basically it puts you in one of 2 brackets. Anyway, if you want to hear my not so optimistic view of the initial beta for the bracket system, that was in yesterday's video. But I didn't talk about the unbannings, and I kicked myself once I uploaded it and went off to spend time with my family. I thought, fuck, I should have mentioned the unbannings. Well, don't worry, the prices spiked today, so it gives me something else to talk about. Looking at mtgstocks.com, which is a great place to keep track of the average market trends of cards. Hashtag not sponsored, it's just a thing that it's a website that's useful. For instance, Goldfish isn't actually showing this data yet. But alongside the ticker at the top here, if you ignore the very strange adverts that I've got there for like a model ship, I think it was, a replica of Bruce Willis's head and a sexy tennis player. I've been getting weird targeted ads because I'm doing a video that should be out next week about like masturbatory playmats and sleeves and shit. Subscribe for that video. It's a fun time. I've got to censor every image I show. Most of the images look like this. But as you can see, Silver Primordial, Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, all of these cards have spiked significantly, in some cases 50%, 100%. What do they have in common? They're all banned, baby. When they showed off the Game Changers list with the article, they had this to say. In addition to that function, you can imagine this is a sort of watch list. Any future bans are likely to come from this list, say for maybe something that shows up in the new set immediately and causes problems like Nadu. Similarly, unbanned cards are likely to end up here to create a nice half step between the banned list and showing up everywhere. It also really helps ensure that you know what cards we have our eyes on, so cards won't feel that they're banned out of nowhere in the future. They do go on to explain that it's unlikely that anything on the list is getting banned, so don't worry about your Gaia's Cradles and your what else is on there? Trouble in Pairs. But this has led to people thinking that the cards on the ban list are now up for discussion and debate. The article also mentions that there'll be a full release of the full non-beta version of the bracket system in April, alongside potential unbans. If anything, the sheer mention of this means that something is getting unbanned. Now, the first assumption would be Dockside Extortionist, Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus because of the controversy and upset that happened around them when they were banned from Commander only 3 or so months ago. The banning that was so controversial, it caused an absolute shitstorm, death threats. Some content creators acted like complete assholes, some of them apologised, others absolutely did not, and it was just a fucking bad time. And eventually Wizards took over the format and created a panel that functions very similar to the old CAG, but it's called something else. If I'm honest, the whole situation is just so painful that I find it frustrating to even talk about. But should those cards come off the ban list? I don't think so. Look, okay, let's get to brass tacks about the whole issue here. The Game Changer list is a list of cards that are problem cards in the format, or cards that really, derail games and cause frustrations. Some of them on here, like the Kinnan, Yuriko, Winota, Grand Arbiter, and Tegrid, are basically your old cards that would be on the banned as a Commander ban list if they were trying to moderate the casual tables through that, but they'll never make that list ever again. Meanwhile, everything else on here is just powerhouse nonsense. It's your Smothering Tithe, it's your heuristic studies. The thing is that a lot of this stuff are problem cards for casual. I think taking off obnoxious shit and putting them onto this list won't stop casual players playing them. I'm not entirely convinced that this bracket system is going to actually work for casual play. The crux of the matter is that if you put Dockside Extortions onto the Game Changers list, it makes people aware of it, but people were already aware of it. It's one of the ones that was so prolific that it kind of auto becomes a game changer in people's minds without having to be put on a list for people to talk about. And people are just going to play it anyway, and we're back to Dockside being what it was, which was an absolute staple of CEDH, and then a card that basically pushed a lot of decks to win very easily and just go infinite with a literal ham sandwich, but people just played it anyway because it was legal. And if you're not playing it, you'll fall behind the people that are playing it. If anything, it gave some decks a way to pull ahead. Mono Red, for example, benefited hugely from this sort of thing when playing against decks that are casting multiple cultivates and go find 2 lands and put them into play cards like Green gets. It's by far far not a perfect solution to that, but I can see why people would justify playing it like that. The mana advantage would often prop up casual, unpowered decks. Decks that were nowhere near as optimized or powerful could make an extra 8 mana and cast their stupid big dumb drop. And basically we get into a situation where every fucker's playing it again. If it's on the game changer list, it can still be included with Smothering Tithe in a blue or in a red-white deck, and either of them absolutely makes you the target at the table. Now, in a situation where everyone's on the same page, in CDH, or perhaps even in category 4 that apparently I'm not in, but yeah, the categories are weird. Maybe we're all on the same page, but I don't think we're all on the same page in the prior categories. In essence, the exhibition and core are the same thing to me. One of them is precons and one is weaker than a precon, which I don't think people are building towards ever. Even when you're building your like ladies looking left deck, you're going to assume it's going to be able to go toe to toe with a precon in my experience. And then the moment you add just one dockside to your deck that is worse than a precon, is it now a category 4? No, it's a category 3, right? Because you've only added one game changer. This doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense. So that leaves us with category 3, where you can play up to 3 game changers. Cool, guess Dockside's back then. I don't think it will be. I really don't think they should. It also like empowers this bitch and moan online and send death threats to the people who made the decisions to get what you want sort of scenario. And I think that's problematic in itself. I kind of like the idea of actually cultivating the game a little bit through some sort of bans. You either take everything off and create this airy-fairy muddy pool that we are bordering on anyway, where people discuss what they want to play against, and you create bracket systems that I don't feel will work. I talked about that in the video yesterday. And then we're back to just like self-moderation and conversations that don't work, and eventually you find your rhythm when you find a play group that you gel with. Or we take a harder stance and we have more bans or cards that are on the game changer list and a set number that you can play, which I guess is category 3. But okay, here's the long and short of it, right? A lot of the cards on the game changer list, I do play myself. I play Dockside when it was legal. I play Smothering Tithe while it's currently legal now. But ultimately, outside of high-powered games, I find those cards deeply, deeply frustrating at most tables. I will often play the decks that I think are lower-powered, my 3s, my mildly upgraded precons, or my precons, for example. I'll play them at tables with players that I perceive to be newer, less experienced, or with less time, energy, and money invested in improving the game or improving their decks. One of them drops a Smothering Tithe into a Dockside Extortionist, and they're still miles and miles ahead, and it still derails the game significantly. I think upgrading your precon, like with a handful of cards, is very different to upgrading your precon with a handful of cards, and then there's Smothering Tithe, Dockside Extortionist, and Jeweled Lotus. There's just not enough nuance in these categories. Looking at the landscape of Magic that I've played in recent times since the bannings of those cards, I think the games have been better. But that might just be anecdotal because it's like fresher in my mind, I guess. The games feel fresh and new after such a tumultuous time of bannings, and then me feeling like the games I played afterwards are fun and that the community actually rose to the challenge of just continue to play a cool game of Magic in spite of the fact that a couple of your expensive toys got banned. Like, looking down the ban list of cards banned in Commander, the vast majority of them kind of make sense, honestly. Like, there are outliers. Gifts Ungiven, for example, which is a bit of a wombo combo card, but largely I don't think tutors... If you're gonna ban shooters, why the fuck is Demonic Tutor still legal, right? And I'm starting to come around to the idea that Coalition Victory is like too hard to achieve, maybe it's... nah. But most of these cards are fucking obnoxious. And I don't know if putting them on a game changer list where you can only play 3 of the obnoxious cards makes it any better. I definitely want to see Paradox Engine or fucking Sundering Titan come back. That doesn't sound like a good time. Like fucking Sway of the Stars has spiked. It has tripled in price overnight. If you want a foil, it's like $46. I used to be really for just like having less bans in the format, but the more I think about like them tomorrow taking anything off the ban list and then seeing all the local players either buy into it or proxy it, and then we just see it more commonly in my local shop or whatever, sounds fucking miserable. If anything, I think Primeval Titan and Sylvan Primordial might be the least miserable cards on this list. Everything on the ban list is spiking, like Coalition Victory up to $6 now, just in case it comes off. There's some people listing them, and some people, well, people listing them to try their luck at people buying them because of the stuff that's coming in April, and for a few people actually buying into them, thinking they're getting them cheaper than they will down the line. As a thought experiment, I looked at the list and considered what I would unban, and I think Prime Time is probably the most logical, like, ban that isn't completely obnoxious. Now, the card is very, very good, and games do revolve around it, but they revolve around it less than, say, Prophet of Kruphix or Sylvan Primordial did, because Sylvan Primordial was like the same shit, but only forest, but you're blowing up stuff. Meanwhile, from the Game Changers list, I guess if I had to ban one of these to do the same thought experiment the other way, you know, move Primeval Titan over to this and remove one of these, I'd probably get rid of... It's going to be Ristic Study, I think. But Vorinclex Voice of Hunger comes very close. Vorinclex is just a pet peeve of mine because people that play it, often I'm the one that has to fucking deal with it and my mana's tapped for like frozen for a turn. But I think Ristic Study is like just an obnoxious card that is so good. It plays into people just playing very badly into it. But really, that's me forcing myself. That's me having my fucking arm twisted to do this. And I just don't want to. I think, in some ways, I think the format is absolutely fine where it is right now. Like, I don't feel like there's any card that when I see it, I really roll my eyes because the political nature of the game does balance itself. For the first time in my life, I guess I'm saying for a format, don't upset the apple cart. It's absolutely fine. Even with the bracket system's not going to help much. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that all these cards were spiking because of this, and I thought I'd share that with you. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.